Just so that you're aware of that. Well, everybody, welcome for joining. I appreciate you all joining us today for our open house for our experimental psychology PhD program. My name is Dr. Mark Huff. I am the program coordinator or program director. And so I'm the one who sends out all kinds of emails and organizes all of the admissions. And I'm also the contact person. So if you have any questions about the program, whether it be admission aspects or application procedures, things like that, feel free to reach out to me. I'm generally attached to email 24/7, so I get back to folks real quick. But very excited to have you today and to talk about our program. It's a program that we've been working on and we're always tweaking, and we have lots of faculty here who are very excited to talk about their research today. Okay. So I just want to start off with a broad overview of some of the research that we've got going on within our experimental program. So we have a total of 8 faculty that are mentoring faculty. We call them affiliated faculty with the program. And so these are faculty members that actively are admitting graduate students to their lab. We've got myself, Dr. Don Sacco, Dr. Alan Heinel, Dr. Andrew Hubert, Dr. Elena Stepanova, Dr. Greer, Dr. Noguchi, and Dr. Agler. Dr. Noguchi and Dr. Agler are based on our Coast campus, but they still mentor graduate students, participate in meetings, our students still take classes, so everybody is highly involved in the program. And then we've got 2 affiliated teaching faculty, actually 3 of them. We've got Aaron Fath, Kruti Surti, and also Tyler Serbo, who's a recent addition to our program as a full-time faculty member. I have a link here if you want to take a look at the research labs. But most of our research boils down to kind of cognitive psychology and social psychology very broadly. We'll have faculty present a little bit of an overview of some of the things that they do. But we look at things such as metacognition, memory, perception, language. And in social psychology, we've got everything from health psychology, multicultural political psychology, attitudes, stereotypes, implicit and explicit behaviors, and those sorts of things. So it's a wide area, and I'm sure if you ask any faculty if they're interested in a particular area, it would be hard to say no, because cognitive and social psychology are fundamental aspects in psychology. And so there are some clinical implications even of some of the work that we do. So very, very broad. I think that if you look through our faculty research, it would be difficult for you to find a topic in psychology that at least one of our faculty members isn't exploring at some level. So in terms of our program, we enroll typically between 20 and 25 total students. And we do that by admitting anywhere from 6 to 7 students every year. And we admit students in a cohort-based model. So that means that if you are admitted and attend our program, that you would come in with fellow students that are at the same level in the graduate program. So we typically have 1st through 5th year students. And how our program operates is we have students apply to work with a particular faculty mentor. So we adopt what's called the Socratic method when it comes to mentorship, meaning that students work with an individual faculty member in their lab, receive one-on-one mentoring from that particular faculty member, but then participate in the broader program by taking courses, attending programmatic functions. We've got a brown bag that we do. We'll talk about that a little bit later, in addition to some other sorts of mentorship pieces. And so we definitely take a programmatic view of all of our students, but all students are mentored on specific projects with a faculty member. So this is really important as you're considering putting together your admission statements, your cover letter and personal statement, for example. You'll need to go ahead and mention which faculty mentor you would most like to work with. And I encourage you to put down 1 or 2. So if there's, if you're interested in social psychology, for example, and you really like attitudes, Dr. Stepanova does some of this work, but as does several other faculty members, including, Dr. Sacco and so on. So there's lots of overlap with faculty, so I encourage you to put multiple down. It also increases the likelihood that you may be accepted into a lab. So you may not get your first choice in terms of a lab, but that other faculty member that you mentioned might be interested in a student, and so they be willing to take you. One of the changes that have happened here at USM within the last couple of years, pretty much since the COVID pandemic has started, we no longer require GREs for admission. So for those of you that are worried about coming up with a couple $100 to take the GRE and some additional money to then send it to us, we don't require them. If you do take the GRE because you're applying to other programs and you want to send it to us, you can. We will have access to that information if you choose to disclose it. We don't use it necessarily for any sort of admissions decisions, but it could be one more piece of evidence that strengthens your application. And then if you were admitted to our program, we provide students with a full tuition waiver and a paid graduate assistantship. So that tuition waiver covers in-state tuition if you are a resident of the state of Mississippi. It includes out-of-state tuition if you are not and you are a domestic applicant. And it also covers international admission if you're an international applicant. So students who come in don't have to worry about paying those aspects. There are certain things like health insurance, for example, that students are required to pay for. And there's a couple of other fees like graduation fees that students have to pay on top of that. But the tuition waiver covers the big chunk of funds, and the graduate assistantship supplements stipend. We guarantee funding in our program for 4 years, which means that you will receive that tuition waiver and the assistantship, provided that you maintain satisfactory standing within the program. That means that you're passing your classes, your mentor feels like you're doing an appropriate job, they give you positive annual evaluations, there aren't other sorts of issues that go on behaviorally. These are rare instances, we haven't had to deal with those, but you must maintain satisfactory standing to get that. And then if you're a student who is in your 4th year and you're applying for jobs and you're productive and you're publishing and your grades are really good and you need some additional time in the program because maybe the job market isn't cooperating with you, we do offer an opportunity for students to apply to receive a 5th year of funding to remain in the program and get some additional research experience. It's really depending upon performance of the student again, and also the availability. But that is something that we think is important because job markets ebb and flow, and sometimes publications don't come out immediately. So we like to provide a little flexibility for our students. I've got the link here for the application process. I'll email the slides to everybody so you can just click on the link later to start your application. The application portal is live today. So if you want to go ahead and start your application, start getting your documents together, contacting letters of reference, those sorts of things, you can just start doing that. Your applications aren't due until one of our deadlines, as you can see on the slide here. And we have 2 of them. The first deadline is at the end of December. And this is our priority deadline. What this means is that if you submit your application and you submit everything that you can control, so that means that you send in your personal statement and your CV, you pay the fee, you have all of your transcripts requested, those sorts of things, we will guarantee that your application is reviewed by our faculty for admission. Certain things that are outside of your control are things like letters of recommendation, transcripts, especially if you're an international applicant, sometimes they take a couple of weeks to come in and get posted. As long as you have those all requested by December 31st and it trickles in over the next couple of weeks, we will still review your application. We guarantee that. If you don't get your materials in by the 31st, we still do continue to accept applications until March 1st of 2024, at what time our application pool closes. We hope to make decisions in advance of March 1st, but if we have openings, for example, and your application comes in say February, we may look at it, but we cannot guarantee that we will look at somebody's application after that date. So what I encourage students who are serious about applying to our program, make sure that your application is in entirely, you've paid the fee, you've submitted everything that you can submit by the 31st. It always is better on our end too, if you can get as many letters of recommendation and transcripts in by the 31st as possible, just so that we can start going through and making admissions decisions in January and February. As I mentioned, we'd like to have all of our admissions kind of wrapped up before March 1st, if we can. So trying to get those materials in is important. In terms of application materials, we require students to submit a curriculum vitae or a resume that talks about your background, your educational background, research-based accomplishments, volunteer accomplishments, anything that kind of aligns with a graduate program in terms of what we value. So research is what we're really focused on. So we'd like to see that kind of front and center. Maybe you're somebody who's had some teaching experience, mentorship experience, working with other undergraduate students. Please include all that information in your curriculum vitae. You also need to put together a statement of purpose. There's some more instructions on the statement of purpose on our website, in case you're curious on how to format this. Make sure that it is a well-written statement that includes a lot of information about you. This is our opportunity to really be introduced to you as a potential student. And so we want to see the strengths that you bring and how you might be successful in our program. We require 3 recommendation letters, preferably from individuals that are in academic programs that you may have worked with as an undergraduate student, or if you have a master's degree, somebody that may have mentored your master's thesis. So those are required as our official transcripts. And then if you are a student who is coming from an international school, we do require an English equivalency exam of the TOEFL or the IELTS. We accept both of them. And the graduate program does have requirements in terms of what minimums need to be. That is something that we do not control as a program. That is something that is applied to all incoming international applicants. So please do, as you go through the application process, those minimums are listed. So make sure that you have met those. And then the final piece is a $60 application fee. This is something that is required of all students who submit applications. We do not provide application fee waivers. There are no exceptions to this. So if you email me asking for a waiver for an application fee, I would love to help you out, but I am unable to do so. This is just required from the graduate school. This is their policy. Okay. Now, in terms of our program curriculum, we are a general experimental psychology program. And so what that means is that we want our students to be well-rounded in terms of their academic and research training in different areas. We oftentimes encourage students to apply for university positions. That's where our training focuses on. But we do have a lot of students that graduate and go into industry applications, data science and data management, et cetera. And so we try and provide a well-rounded curriculum where students are exposed to different areas within experimental psychology. We tend to play up a lot of the expertise that we have from our faculty members. And so we offer a couple of different courses in cognitive psychology and in social psychology. But we also offer courses in personality, perception, behavioral neuroscience. We have a neuroscience course, health disparities, and then our students receive a lot of training in statistics and research methods. And so the goal is that when a student graduates from our program, they are very well prepared to teach undergraduate and potentially graduate courses in different areas. And so that means that if you are a cognitive student who's working in a cognitive psychology lab, you've taken a social psychology course. So if your first job requires you to teach a social psychology course to undergraduates, you would be well prepared to do so. You would be well informed in terms of the literature. You could probably select a textbook with relative ease. It may not be your first choice in terms of courses that you would like to teach, but you would be qualified to do so. And so that's really the goal of kind of a general program, is that students are well-rounded, so that increases the likelihood that they could get a job pretty much anywhere. In terms of research, we aim to have our students be research focused from the very beginning. Every single one of our students is involved in a first-year research project that comes in. They get going on data collection, whether it's using online methods, in-person methods. There's a lot of programming that goes on for a lot of labs. Some of them use VR technology, some use PHP, Python programming languages, others use things like Qualtrics and do some survey work. It varies a little bit, but students are given a good dose of research methodology at the very beginning, which translates really well into research positions in industry. Now, our program is a thesis-based program. And so what that means is that students are required to do a thesis at the master's level and put together a project, assemble a committee of faculty members who adjudicate the quality of that project, and to submit a written document and defend that written document as part of the graduation requirements. They do that for the master's and also for the dissertation. So this differs from other types of graduate programs that are professional programs in which you take the courses that are offered to you, but there isn't kind of a capstone project. It's not typically, these professional programs are not thesis-based or research-based. We are. As part of your tuition waiver and also your graduate assistantship, we want students to be engaged in the research process and promote research within the university. And the best way that you can do that is through your thesis and dissertation projects. So if you go through and you try and publish these, it's got the university's name on it, which promotes the university's research profile. And so that's kind of part of the reason in justifying our tuition waivers and graduate assistantships. Now, if students come in and they've already completed a master's degree, whether it's an MA or an MS degree, we can waive the thesis requirement for the master's degree, depending upon the project. So we typically accept 1 or 2 students that have a master's degree every single year. And the process is relatively simple. You have to submit your master's thesis that you completed in your prior program, and then we vet that as faculty members. So we read through the documents and we determine whether or not that thesis project that you completed would map onto the rigors that our program requires. And so if your thesis project, involves data collection of human participants, it's very clear that there's variable manipulation and you measure an outcome, a dependent variable. We can see that there's a good literature review and a nice discussion of your results and how they impact the field. We oftentimes just waive that requirement so that you're not having to do a thesis project again. And that works out fairly well, so you don't have that concern of trying to get a thesis project together and off the ground right away. But you do still need to complete all of the curriculum. So that means that you will need to take our stats training. You will need to take all of our courses that we offer. And your cohort that you come in with will also be taking those same courses at the same time. But you just don't have to go through that additional thesis. And so usually when students come in with a master's degree, they're a little bit better prepared in terms of research. They have projects going more immediately. They may be more likely to publish things that they had from their master's program and also get involved in new projects. And so the only requirement in terms of these capstone projects is the dissertation. Students that come in with a master's degree get 4 years of funding. We don't typically extend students that come in with a master's degree a 5th year because they've already had 2 years of graduate training, at least 2 years of graduate training. Okay, and now I want to do a quick presentation of our faculty research. And so each faculty member that's here today is going to quickly discuss their lab, some of the research that they're interested in. And so we're going to start here with Dr. Alan Heinall. So Alan, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, you can go ahead and do so.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Alan Heinall. I'm a full professor here in the Experimental Psychology PhD program. I've been at this university since 2008, and I have an active research lab where we study visual and haptic perception, the concept of affordances, that is, what the environment and situations and objects afford us to interact with them. We also dabble in complexity science. We study the interaction between our perception and motor coordination. And our methods are, strictly speaking, lab science. We collect most of our data in person using psychophysical methods of repeated measurements. And my research is very much multidisciplinary. You can the intersection of cognitive science and computer science. And some of the research tools that we have in our lab include 3D printers, several 3D printers, a 3D scanner, eye trackers, and virtual reality systems. So different types, most notably the Oculus and the HTC Vive. And a successful student's research profile would include interest in all of these areas or some subset of it. And I value highly the willingness to engage in sophisticated statistical analyses, data processing, and computer programming, as you see listed there. So if you have interest in working with me, you can check out my website, the lab website, and my contact information is at the bottom of this slide. I'm available for consultation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Heinel. All right, so next up we've got Don Sacco. I don't know if he is on today. I don't see him in. I don't see him in the weight room. Whoops, we'll go back here. Okay, so I'll just do a quick overview of Don Sacco's lab. Don's got a very busy lab. He's got currently 5 graduate students, and he's planning on taking another here next year. He's got a very productive research program that primarily focuses on evolutionary aspects of social psychology. So asking the question of if behavior is adaptive in some way, how does that affect how we perceive the world around us? And so I know that Dr. Sacco looks a little bit at how individuals might be avoidant towards sources of diseases, looks at how cues that originate from the face, like attractiveness, for example, might be socially adaptive. So why do we find things like symmetry to be something that is, romantically motivating to us and attractive to us? Looks at a lot of mating types of behaviors and also how we can discern. Some of his interesting work is how we might discern whether or not someone's a good parent, depending on how they look. And then I also want to talk a little bit about some of the work that Don and I are doing. We've got a program of research that we built looking at some attentional distractions. And so we just received about a $500,000 grant in funding to look at how sounds that originate from somebody's mouth when they're eating or consuming various goods might be very distracting to them. And so this has a social psychological implication because oftentimes we're eating, drinking, etc. when we're in the context of other people. But some folks find this very annoying and very troublesome. And so that might affect their well-being. And so we've got a great project there going on. If you want more information, he's got a QR code. Feel free to scan that. And you can also find information about his lab listed on our website. Okay, and I'm the next one up here. So my lab is the Memory, Attentional Control, and Aging lab. You can see that I've got a QR code there. If you want to scan that on your device, you're welcome to take a look at it. You can also do a Google search. It's one of the first ones that show up there. I've got a fairly large lab, as you can see here. Good group of both graduate students and undergraduates. My lab is currently made up. I've got 4 graduate students right now, and I'll be admitting another one for the fall. I typically have one undergraduate honors thesis every single year and a bunch of undergraduate research assistants. And so students are oftentimes supported by mentoring undergraduate research assistants that can help with data collection, in some cases, data programming, etc. We do a lot of different work kind of in the memory area, generally speaking. My bread and butter is really kind of in false memory errors. I'm fascinated by how often individuals make memory mistakes, oftentimes believing that errors that they're retrieving from memory are true and with high confidence. We use a lot of different types of paradigms to elicit false memory errors, whether it's kind of eyewitness type context like misinformation, or if it's using associative or related information. And then more recently, we've gotten into some meta memory work, and there's a whole bunch of labs in our program that do work on meta memory and metacognition, which is your own belief about your memory abilities or your cognitive abilities. And then I also do some work with aging. So it's not uncommon to have older adults involved in my research program. I'm interested in how memory changes as a function of age. And I'm also interested in how older adults might use some sort of strategy to improve their memories overall. And so a lot of our work involves intervention programs. We'll work with a group of older adults to try and improve their memory, try and make their memories more accurate, even though there are some age-related declines that are fairly well documented. As I mentioned earlier, Dr. Sacco and I have some funding in our lab, and we're going to be funding graduate students for the next couple of years, which is exciting. We go to a bunch of conferences. I just kind of threw some of these up there. Our big one is the Psychonomic Society Conference, which is a big international conference in cognitive psychology. All right. We've got Lynn Egler next. Lynn, are you on with us?
No, I think I can fill in.
Oh, that's right. Okay, go ahead, Kenji.
Yeah, so Dr. Agra is doing research on metacognition. So metacognition is the ability to be able to calibrate the performance. So knowing that aspect is helpful for future performance. So she has done many studies on metacognition. So metacognition in reading ability, or math cognition. So they answered some math questions. So one question is that, so they know that they get right answers or wrong answers. So knowing that they are right, they are wrong may be helpful for learning in the future. And so she has done some studies about aging, so older adults versus young adults, the college graduate and high school graduate. So how cognitive ability may be different based on age. And also she has done studies about the personality traits and learning aspect. And also she's interested in about STEM aspect, so like gender stereotyping and STEM fields. And the next slide, please. And also she's mentoring some students, and so students have different topics, not just about metacognition, but some learning for children with ADHD. So different interventions may help them learning some skills. So she has like different topics for undergraduate students research and also graduate student research. And she has, I don't know if she has a lab page, but you can see she's working on different topics. And I think you can contact her if you're interested in her research area.
And I believe Dr. Egler is taking on one student next year. At least that's her goal. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Noguchi. And we're going to keep the meta memory train going here and have Dr. Andrew Hubert, our brand new faculty hire, discuss his lab and his research.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Huff. You can move up one slide, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so like Dr. Huff mentioned, I just started here this semester as a tenure track assistant professor. I do a lot of research on both recognition, memory, and metacognition. So probably the majority of my training and background is in how we recognize that we've encountered something before, which is a key cognitive process. A lot of this has to do with the process of familiarity. So when you recognize someone either before or even if you fail to recall specifics, there's this feature matching process that goes on where you store things in memory from an initial encounter, and you store those features and you try to match them up with something you encounter later. This is a big aspect of what I do. Also, kind of the bigger role that familiarity plays in recognition memory is another specialty of mine. So generally, people have taken the approach that familiarity is more of kind of a backup method of recognition, but a lot of what I've been doing lately suggests that it's kind of the other way around, that familiarity plays a much bigger role in the recognition memory process of actually getting us to search for specific details, having illusions of remembering specific details, and also many other things as well. An offshoot of that I did a lot of work on as a graduate student, and then I still plan to continue, related to familiarity and recognition memory, is the study of all of these also intertwine with, again, metacognition, and that's where we get into questions about tip of the tongue states, partial recollection, or the idea that you can recall fragments of something but not recall the whole thing, and finally, curiosity. In general, my methods are pretty straightforward. We just use regular standard computer software to run a variety of memory experiments. And like I said, I'm hoping to take on one graduate student for the upcoming year.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Hubert.
Of course.
All right, and Dr. Noguchi again.
Hi everyone. I'm Japanese, so I'm originally from Japan. So my initial research project was cross-cultural differences. So Japan is more collectivistic cultures, and the US is more individualistic cultures. So I was interested in how individualistic cultures can function, because I value social relationships as Japanese. So like I was interested in these cultural differences. But also I expanded the research topic to various areas. So countries, so I have like these different areas, but it's in my mind, it's interconnected. I'm not going to explain it now, but so I have various research interests. So like graduate students have different research topics. So like one of the students is working on using terror management theory and moral function theory, and another graduate student is working on African Americans' ethnic identity. But so they have like different interests, like values, and also like my interest is kind of like shifting toward well-being too. So I'm interested in meaning in life and mindfulness and coping strategies, and so I'm incorporating cultural aspects on these. So like autonomy may be important for Americans' well-being, but Japanese maybe social connections may contribute more for their meaning in life and well-being. So I incorporating many aspects and on these topics. And so I have 3 graduate students, and so my idea is that they can also have some collaborations. So when they are going to job market, so they can have multiple publications, so they can be marketable. So when they apply to a job, and so in our lab, so we use different research designs. So we use Savic design and also experimental design, and also I'm using archival data to do some cross-cultural research. So you can be exposed to so many different research methods. So I use different research statistical analysis, like basic analysis, to structure equation modeling. So you can be exposed to so many different things in our lab. And I didn't put the information about my lab page, but you can check my lab page for more detailed information.
All right,
Okay,
thank you, Dr. Noguchi. Okay, next we have Dr. Greer's lab, her experimental health lab. Dr. Greer is traveling today, so she is unable to join us. So I'm just going to give a quick overview. Dr. Greer is very much interested in health disparities that occur in Native American populations. She's got lots and lots of different grant-funded projects that are looking at some of these health disparities. And the goal of a lot of her research is to try and alleviate some of these challenges that we face here in the United States in terms of unequal health care opportunities. She currently has 2 graduate students in her lab, Asher Bradley and Asma Ediza, but they're very productive in terms of going out into the field, collecting data, interacting with different people groups. And I know that she is en route right now to actually go and do some of the data collection this weekend. She's got some data that she's presented here to just kind of highlight some of the differences that we find in terms of health disparities. What's being plotted here is life expectancy on the y-axis. And so this is in the United States, how long we expect individuals to live. And as you can see here, that if we start looking at ethnic differences, there's vast differences when we compare across population groups. So Hispanic and Asian individuals have the highest life expectancy, whites lower, blacks lower than that. And the population that Dr. Greer is most interested in is Native Americans, Alaska Natives, Native Pacific Islanders, et cetera. And you can see that there is a massive difference for this particular group. And if we look after the COVID-19 pandemic, you can really see that there's a major drop-off in terms of life expectancy. So a lot of her work, Dr. Greer's work, is really trying to figure out why. Is it due to a lack of access to healthcare? Are there other sorts of stereotypical issues that are going on that might prevent individuals from accessing this healthcare? And why is there such a massive drop-off after the COVID-19 pandemic that you see for Native Americans, and you don't see that quite steep drop-off with the others? So she looks at everything from kind of the socioeconomic aspects, but also looks at other sorts of cultural aspects like education and literacy that might also feed into these differences in life expectancies. Here are just some of the funding agencies that she's been working with. She holds a lot of funding from the Mississippi Embrace, also holds some funding from NIH, the Telenutrition Center, Mississippi Humanities, and so they've been very successful, and she funds a lot of graduate student programming initiatives through these agencies. So if you're interested in some of these health disparities and how we might work to alleviate them and at least document where they are, definitely contact Dr. Greer. I know that she plans on taking at least one student for fall 2024 admission. And then I also am going to be covering Dr. Stepanova's lab. So Dr. Stepanova is actually going to be on sabbatical next year, so she will not be taking any graduate students. But I just briefly wanted to mention her as a faculty member because if you were admitted to our program, will be taking her advanced social psychology class. She's very much a presence within our program. And her lab is the social cognition and behavior lab. She tends to focus a lot on attitude developments and evaluating how attitudes that individuals have affect behavior. She does a lot of work on stereotypes, particularly stereotypes towards social groups, minority groups, and other sorts of stigmatized groups. And so she looks at how individuals' attitudes that they might have for these groups might affect things like judgments, interactions, whether people like these stigmatized groups and how that might affect interactions with them. More recently, her graduate students have started to look at attitudes towards abortion, which is a highly politically volatile topic in the United States. And there seems to be a lot of extremes with that. So she's been looking at how individuals that are supporting versus not supporting abortion, how they might be treated differently when it comes to policy and just general attitudes, and how individuals also who are in minority groups or of minority status might show some disparities towards health. And she's particularly looked at the Black or African American population and how they may be stigmatized in terms of their accessibility to various healthcare. She's got a couple of publications here. If you're interested and would like to learn more about her excellent work, there's also a QR code if you wanted to take a look at her lab. Okay. And before we open up for questions, I do want to have one of our graduate students. We've got Mackenzie Gunter, who's a member of Dr. Heinall's lab. She's graciously volunteered her time to talk about the student government that we have going on here, which is something that is targeted towards getting graduate students a nice social network and getting them involved in various research initiatives. So I will turn it over to Mackenzie to provide an overview.
Hi, I'm Kenzie. I'm the fundraising chair of the Experimental Psychology Student Government. So I'll be giving you some information on our program, or I guess on our. So what we are is we're a support system for all the students within the Experimental Psychology PhD program. And we offer several different types of support for our students, including social, financial, research, and diversity, equity, and inclusion support. We also provide a voice for all the students in the program. A couple of our officers, including the vice president and the master's representative, actually attend the faculty meetings monthly in order to discuss student concerns with them. So some social support that we offer to the students is we like to organize social events in order to socialize with the students in our program and build a community as graduate students in general. And some examples of the social events that we've had previously include a welcoming event for the incoming students, a movie night, dinners at local restaurants. We have a Christmas party every year, and we also have an end of the year party. Some financial support. So we have at least one fundraising activity a semester in order to raise money for our program. In the past 3 years, we've raised over $4,000, and the money that we raised is distributed through the travel grants and research grants for our students in the program. Some research support we offer. So we have several different professional development workshops throughout the year. And these include things like a manuscript writing workshop and a time management workshop. We also have some others. We also share a resource through Microsoft Teams with each other. Some resources that we share include things like conference materials, grant applications, and Qualtrics training. And we also have accountability groups to help students meet their writing and research deadlines. We also offer DEI support. So we have a diversity committee, and this offers things like a diversity statement workshop, inclusivity trainings, and diversity initiative development. And overall, this committee provides a safe environment for students of all different backgrounds and underrepresented groups. We also have roles within the government. We have several different officer positions, and these include the president, vice president, social development chair, professional development chair, master's representative, fundraising chair, and public relations representative. We also have some expectations for our members, and these include attending the monthly meetings with the student group so we can discuss upcoming events, such as different social events or fundraising events that we plan to do. We also have a yearly due of $25 if you want to be a member, and we also expect our members to assist in fundraising efforts at least once per year. And if you'd like to know anything else about the program or you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our president, Zach Buckner. His email is listed here. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Mackenzie. And I do want to quickly mention that if you're interested in following up with our student government, they do have social media accounts that they do update periodically, which is good. So you're welcome to take a look at them on Twitter, X, Instagram. What else are we on, Mackenzie? Is that it?
I think that's it.
Okay. I know that we're working on getting a Facebook account again. But if you'd like to follow up and just see some of the things that they do, they post pictures to some of the events. We try and encourage students to attend some community events. We as faculty get together with students and, buy dinner or take them out and go departmental bowling and things like that. It's just a social way so that students can blow off some steam and also communicate about research projects if they wish to do so. It's just a nice social component that we have. Okay, so that's all we have here for our open house. I want to leave some time. We got about 13 minutes left here for any questions that you might have as prospective students. So go ahead and fire away. Nothing? Any questions about the application process? I'm happy to share, how faculty make decisions in terms of applications, how that works. I'm happy to talk about, interview timelines.
Do you think you could expand more about the interview process and how that goes?
Absolutely. So in terms of, applications, we review them as faculty. So this is something that, every single faculty member, even though you might be applying to one specific lab, everybody that's a faculty member of our experimental program is going to look at that. And so what we do then afterwards, if we rank your application high enough, will then offer an interview. And these interviews can be done in person if you're somebody that is either local or available and is willing to come in, or we will do these virtually over Zoom. And so we will ask questions about your preparation level. We'll ask you about your strengths and weaknesses as a student. We'll ask you about your capabilities, your capacities. And the whole goal is to really find out whether, number one, you're a good fit for our program. Number two, you've got the skills to do it. And perhaps most importantly, whether you have that grit or motivation to get through a graduate program. That's a little challenging to assess, I'll be perfectly honest. But once we go through that interview process, then we'll rank applications again, and then we'll start determining admissions. And so after the interview stage, we rank applications with all the other labs. So we're trying to get the very best students we can possibly get into our programs, regardless of whose lab they're trying to work with. And so we rank all the students, and then we kind of just go down the list in terms of offers. We would like, and this is, perfect world, to start the interview process kind of late January. So applications kind of in by that priority deadline by the 31st of December. We'll take a couple of weeks, wait for materials that might be coming in. We'll look at them as faculty, we'll rank them, and then we hope to start offering interviews. And so the interviews will happen with the faculty mentor or mentors that you have identified in your personal statement, and they will also include another faculty member. So there'll be at least 2, possibly 3 individuals that will sit in on that interview. Interviews last half hour, 45 minutes.
Nice, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I see a question in the chat. Looks like Dr. Heinel has answered that about conferences. Yes, it's expected that we go to conferences. We offer several local conferences through our graduate program. There's one that the graduate program holds every single April. It costs students nothing to go. In fact, they give you a free lunch, so you might as well go. I heard that the peach cobbler is excellent. So you can go to that, and there's cash prizes. And so your posters or your talks get adjudicated, and you get some feedback from other faculty. So it's kind of a fun, easygoing, relaxed conference. Most faculty require their students to present at it every single year. You might as well, it's a good experience. We also have some regional conferences that are really close by. We've got the Mississippi Academy of Sciences, and then we also have the Southeastern Psychological Association. The Southeastern Psychological Association bounces around communities here in the American South. It was in New Orleans last year, so it was 2 hours, 2.5 hours down the road. Mississippi Academy of Sciences is often here on campus. So that's a local one. Sometimes it's down on the coast, down at the Gulf Park area. And so it kind of moves around, but it's usually no more than about an hour's drive for students. And so the expectation is that students go to that. Got a question in here about research experiences. What kind of research experiences do we look for? Well, we hope that students have an opportunity to get involved in the data collection process with human subjects. That's what we hope for. So it's not to say that if a student has lots of research experience in a biology lab and has very good skills, pipetting different solvents and things like that. I know nothing about biology, so I'll just stop right there. That's great. That's still exposure to the research process, and that still counts for something. But applicants that have experience, running participants through research studies, either in person or online, maybe getting some opportunity to analyze data, maybe students have had an opportunity to present at an undergraduate conference or something like that. Those are experiences that are a little bit more valuable in terms of research. Let's see. I got a direct message about when our final admissions going to happen, or decisions for final admissions. Those don't happen by a particular date because we kind of have rolling admissions. And so after that first ranking after interviews, we'll start making offers to students. And then if students either accept or decline those offers, then we'll continue to go down our list. Again, we hope, perhaps too optimistically, to have admissions wrapped up by early March, but I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if we're still making offers to students maybe in kind of late March, maybe even early April. At the university, we do have to have our admissions finished by April 15th. So no more offers can go out anytime after that date. And if we do make an offer, they have to be decided upon no later than April 15th. But we actually like to have students make a decision one way or another well before that. So we oftentimes will have a deadline in our offer letters of a few weeks, just so that students aren't holding on to multiple offers. And if they're not going to come to the program, we'd much rather offer it to another student who would come here. So that's how that process works. I've got a question about transcripts. Does your university need to send your transcripts? Yes, they do. So we only accept what are called official transcripts. And so you need to contact your university and ask them to send it on our behalf. So we have a link in our online application that tells you where you need to send those transcripts. You can send unofficial transcripts and we can look at those, but we can't make any sort of admissions decisions until we have those official transcripts processed by our office. Got a question from Casey here. How do you communicate research experience for projects that are ongoing? Talk about where you're at in the research process. What have you done so far? You know, you mentioned an IRB application in the question right here. So what's that process like? Have you done that? Have you started to collect data? I understand that you're going to be applying to a program in the middle of the academic year, right? So you're not going to have projects completely done. Talk about the research idea. Talk about the opportunity you had to have a conversation with a faculty member and come up with a research idea. Have you come up with a research design? What sorts of research designs did you look at? Which one are you going to use? How are you manipulating variables? What do you plan on measuring? Talk about all the things that you've done to that point. We understand that a lot of our applicants are undergraduate students who probably don't have a ton of research experience, but if they do have some, communicate that as clearly as you can.
Thank you.
And Mark, I think Rosma had a question about my research.
Yeah, go for it.
So in the interest of time, Rosma, if this piques your interest, you can feel free to email me and I'll be happy to give you a lot more detail about the kinds of experiments that we're running in the lab. You can chat with my graduate students to see a perspective from their point of view about what it takes to be a graduate student, and I can send you some papers and all sorts of things like that. So there's lots of different opportunities.
I got a direct question from Danya asking about statement of purpose, personal statements, what those look like. There's a lot of variability in statements of purpose, I'll be perfectly frank. The things that we're looking for are things that are going to communicate the strengths and capabilities that you have as a student. You obviously want to introduce yourself and talk about your background and the accomplishments you have. Focusing on, your educational background makes sense. You're applying to another university, so you'll want to talk about what you did for your undergraduate, maybe discuss your GPA, talk about your courses that you've taken and how they've informed your career goals, and then talk about your experiences. Talk about your research experiences, talk about any sorts of papers you've been working on, projects you've been working on, anything that communicates skill to us. And another piece is talk about your career goals. What do you want to do when you get a PhD at the University of Southern Mississippi? Where do you anticipate it taking you? We try and train academics and individuals who are going to be focused on research, maybe in industry applications. And so we kind of look for that. If we have somebody that says, hey, I'm really interested in doing government research, I want to look at human behavior and things like that, totally great. That's something that we work on and prepare students for. We also look at folks that are interested in going into their traditional academic route. So if you want to be an academic and a professor, you want to teach, you want to learn how to do research and mentor students, talk about those things as well. We want to learn about you, and we want to learn about some of the grit that you might have as a student. Talk about some challenges that you've experienced and how you've overcome them. So this is really an opportunity for you to market yourself in the best way possible. Got a couple of questions. Looks like some of them have been answered. Yeah, you can submit an unofficial transcript, but we can't make any sort of admissions decisions until official transcripts come in. And oftentimes we don't even extend interviews to applicants until official transcripts come in because they're not considered fully processed. So if you're planning on applying for this program and if you're anticipating that there's going to be a few weeks before those transcripts get in, make sure that you're organized and request those transcripts, maybe by the end of November so that they can start coming in time. We're sensitive. We understand that with international applicants, there's additional hurdles in terms of just distances. And we're happy to work with you. If you let us know that, hey, I've applied, I've made transcript requests, they're on their way, just reaching out to us and letting us know and keeping that open line of communication is absolutely appropriate. Dr. Hubert put in the chat regarding personal statements. Talk about USM and why this program in particular is going to be impactful for you. That's another thing we look for. What sorts of training opportunities can you get here that make this the place that you want to be? So that helps sell yourself to us. We want students that want to be here, that want to get their degrees here, and that want to be productive in the field. So anything that communicates that. So thank you, Dr. Hubert, for adding that in. I also got a direct message about the IELTS being waived if an international student has a medium of instruction in English. The answer to that is no. So you must submit an IELTS or TOEFL score. The only exception is if you are an international student who has received either an undergraduate or a graduate degree from a university within the United States. So if you've graduated from a program in a different state or maybe even in the same state, you do not need to resubmit any of that information. That is plenty sufficient for English equivalency. Okay, so we are out of time. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to me. I'm happy to answer those. If there's a faculty mentor that you're interested in working with, please reach out to them as well. I'm sure they would love to chat with you. I know that all of us are very receptive to answering questions, particularly via email. And I wish all of you the best of luck with your applications. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.